I should have known something was wrong the moment I pulled into the driveway. It was one of those perfect October evenings in Connecticut, the kind where the air smells like fallen leaves and wood smoke, and the sun hangs low enough to paint everything gold. I had left work early, excited to surprise my husband Mark before we headed to my sister's rehearsal dinner. Emma was getting married in 2 weeks, and she had been texting me all day about centerpiece emergencies and seating chart drama. I remember smiling as I grabbed my purse from the passenger seat. I was thinking about how beautiful my baby sister would look walking down that aisle, how Ryan, her fiancé, seemed almost too perfect for her, how our parents were finally going to get the big wedding they always wanted. After Mark and I had eloped to Vegas 5 years ago, the house was too quiet. That was the first thing that struck me when I stepped through the front door. Usually Mark had music playing or the television on. He worked from home on Fridays, and our 2-story colonial in the suburbs was never this silent. But today, there was nothing. Just the hum of the refrigerator and the distant sound of a dog barking somewhere down the street. Ryan's car was in our driveway. I had noticed it when I pulled in, but my mind had made excuses. Maybe they were planning a surprise for Emma. Maybe they were discussing wedding logistics. Ryan worked in finance. Mark was in tech consulting. They had become friendly over the past year since Emma and Ryan got engaged. Golf buddies. They texted about sports. It was normal, except it wasn't. I set my keys on the entry table, the small ceramic dish Emma had made me for my birthday 3 years ago, back when things were simple, back when I believed in the version of my life I was living. I heard something then, a sound from upstairs. Low voices, maybe laughter. I couldn't tell. My heels clicked against the hardwood as I walked toward the staircase. Each step felt heavier than the last. Later, I would realize my body knew before my brain did. The way your stomach drops on a roller coaster before the fall actually happens. The door to the guest bedroom was open. Not all the way, just enough. I have replayed this moment in my mind 1,000 times since then. Sometimes I imagine turning around, walking back downstairs, getting in my car and driving until I ran out of gas. But that is not what happened. I walked to that door. I looked inside, and I saw my husband with my sister's fiancé. There is no way to describe that moment that does it justice. It was not just what I saw, though that was clear enough. It was the way time seemed to stop and speed up all at once. The way my hands started shaking so hard I had to press them against the door frame to keep myself upright. The way my heart was pounding so loud, I thought they would hear it before they saw me, but they were too focused on each other to notice anything else. Mark's shirt was on the floor. Ryan's belt unbuckled. They were standing close, too close, in a way that left no room for misinterpretation, in a way that told me this was not the first time. This was comfortable, familiar, practiced. I must have made a sound. A gasp, maybe. Or maybe it was just the shift in the air when someone's entire world cracks open. Mark turned first. His face went white. Actually white, like all the blood had drained straight out of his body. Ryan froze, his hand still on Mark's shoulder, his eyes meeting mine with something that looked almost like relief. Nobody screamed. Nobody moved. We just stood there in this horrible triangle of silence, the three of us connected by lies I had not even known existed 5 minutes ago. I wanted to say something. I wanted to scream, to demand answers, to ask how long this had been going on, but my voice was gone. My throat had closed up completely. All I could do was stare at the man I had shared a bed with for 5 years, the man whose name I had taken, the man I had trusted with every piece of my life, and he stared back at me like I was a stranger. Ryan stepped away first, reaching for his shirt with shaking hands. Mark just stood there, frozen, his mouth opening and closing like he was trying to form words that would not come. I took a step backward, then another. I did not run. I did not slam the door. I just turned around and walked back downstairs with the same careful steps I had used to come up, one foot in front of the other, breathing in, breathing out, existing in a body that no longer felt like mine. I made it to the kitchen before my legs gave out. I grabbed the counter. My fingers pressed so hard against the granite that my knuckles turned white. I could hear them upstairs now. Urgent whispers. Footsteps. The sound of a door closing. My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Emma. "Can't wait to see you tonight. Mom is driving me crazy with the flower arrangements. Save me." 3 laughing emojis. A heart. I stared at that message for a long time. My little sister, 28 years old, about to marry a man who was upstairs in my house with my husband, about to walk down an aisle toward a lie. The front door opened. I heard Emma's voice before I saw her. "Hey, I know I'm early, but I escaped Mom's clutches and thought we could get ready together," and she stopped when she saw my face. "What happened?" I opened my mouth, closed it. How do you tell someone that their perfect life is about to implode? How do you become the person who destroys everything? "I need to tell you something," I managed to whisper. "About Ryan." Emma's face changed. Something flickered across it, something that was not surprise. She glanced toward the staircase, then back at me, and then she leaned in close, her voice dropping to barely a whisper. "It's worse than you think." And in that moment, I realized my sister already knew. She already knew. Those 3 words kept repeating in my mind as I sat across from Emma at the corner coffee shop the next morning. I had barely slept. Mark had tried to talk to me when he finally came downstairs the night before, but I had locked myself in our bedroom and refused to open the door. I heard him pacing outside until midnight, then silence, then the guest room door closing. Emma looked perfect, as always. Her blonde hair pulled back in a ponytail, minimal makeup, wearing one of those expensive athleisure outfits that cost more than my monthly car payment. She sipped her oat milk latte like we were about to discuss wedding favors, not the complete destruction of both our lives. "How long have you known?" My voice came out flat. I had no tears left. She set down her cup carefully, aligning it precisely with the edge of the saucer. Emma had always been meticulous like that. Everything in its place, everything controlled. 6 months. 6 months. Half a year. While I had been planning her bridal shower, addressing her wedding invitations, going to dress fittings with her, while I had listened to her gush about Ryan, about their future, about the house they were buying in Greenwich, while I had been living my life like everything was normal. I found messages on Ryan's phone, she continued, her voice steady, too steady. Last April, he had left it on the bathroom counter and it kept buzzing. I thought it was work. It wasn't. She paused, taking another sip of coffee, like she was discussing the weather. At first, I thought it was some random guy, someone he met at a bar or online. But then I saw Mark's name, your Mark, and I realized it had been going on for at least 8 months by then. The math made me sick. 8 months ago was last January, right after New Year's. Mark and I had been trying to get pregnant. He had been distant, distracted, working late. I had blamed myself, wondered if I was not attractive enough anymore, if I had gained too much weight, if I was boring him. And all along, he was with my sister's fiancé. "Why didn't you tell me?" I asked, though I already knew the answer. Emma looked out the window at the street, watching people walk by with their normal problems, their normal lives. "The wedding was already paid for," she said finally. $70,000, non-refundable deposits, the venue, the caterer, the photographer. Mom and Dad had already sent out 200 invitations. Grandpa John had just put $50,000 into our joint account as a wedding gift. There it was, the truth underneath all the lies, money, status, appearances. "I couldn't just throw that away because of your marriage problems," she said, and the way she emphasized your made my blood run cold. "Ryan promised it was over. He said it was a mistake, a phase, something he needed to work through. He swore he wanted to marry me, to have a family with me, and I believed him. Did you?" I asked. "Or did you just want to believe him because canceling the wedding would be embarrassing?" She finally looked at me then, and for the first time I saw something real in her eyes. Not guilt, not shame, anger. "You don't understand what it's like," she said. "You've always been the smart one, the one who didn't care what people thought. You eloped to Vegas and didn't care that Mom cried for a week. You chose Mark, even though Dad thought he wasn't ambitious enough. You did whatever you wanted, and you always got everything handed to you." I shot back. "The big wedding, the trust fund, the perfect life. Perfect?" She laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think my life is perfect? I'm marrying a man who is in love with your husband, but at least I know it. At least I'm choosing this with my eyes open. What's your excuse?" I stood up so fast my chair scraped against the floor. People turned to look, but I did not care anymore. "My excuse is that I trusted the people I loved," I said quietly. "I trusted my husband, and I trusted my sister." I walked out before she could respond. The next 2 weeks were the strangest of my life. Mark tried everything. Flowers, apologies, long emails explaining his confusion, his journey, his self-discovery. He wanted me to understand, to give him time, to work through this together. I read every word with the same cold detachment I had felt since that moment in the doorway. And then I deleted them all. I moved into the guest room permanently. I stopped doing his laundry, stopped cooking dinner, stopped pretending we were anything other than two strangers living in the same house. When he tried to talk, I answered in single words. Yes, no, fine, okay. He hated it. I could see it in his eyes every time I looked through him instead of at him. He wanted a fight. He wanted tears and accusations and dramatic confrontations. He wanted to be the victim of his own story, misunderstood and struggling with his identity. But I gave him nothing. Just silence. Just empty space where a wife used to be. At family dinners, I smiled. I helped Emma with last-minute wedding details. I made small talk with Ryan about his job, about the housing market, about nothing that mattered. And I watched them both squirm under the weight of my calmness. My mother pulled me aside after Sunday dinner, 3 days before the wedding. Emma told me you and Mark are having some troubles, she said carefully. But I hope you can put that aside for your sister's big day. This wedding means everything to her. Of course it did. This wedding with its imported flowers and designer dress. This wedding that cost more than my annual salary. This wedding built on lies and cowardice, and the belief that appearances mattered more than truth. Don't worry, Mom, I said, kissing her cheek. I won't ruin Emma's perfect day. And I meant it, because I had other plans. That night, I sat at my laptop in the guest room and opened my bank statements. Joint account. My name and Mark's name. 5 years of shared finances, shared dreams, shared lies. I started taking screenshots. Every unusual transaction. Every transfer to accounts I did not recognize. Every unexplained withdrawal over the past year. And there were a lot of them. The wedding was in 3 days. I had a lot of work to do. The law office smelled like leather and old books. The kind of place that charged $500 an hour and made you feel like your problems mattered. I sat across from Margaret Chen, one of the top divorce attorneys in Connecticut. She was in her 50s, impeccably dressed, with the kind of sharp eyes that missed nothing. I had brought everything: bank statements, screenshots of suspicious transactions, a timeline of Mark's behavior over the past year, even the credit card bills showing hotel charges on nights he claimed to be working late. You've been thorough, Margaret said, flipping through my folder. Most people come in here emotional and unprepared. You came in like you're planning a military operation. I don't want to be emotional, I replied. I want to be smart. She smiled. It was not warm, but it was approving. Smart is good. Smart gets results. She tapped one of the bank statements. These transfers here. $23,000 moved from your joint account to an account solely in his name. Did you authorize these? I didn't even know that account existed. Good. That's financial misconduct. And these hotel charges, combined with the timeline you've provided, establish a clear pattern of marital abandonment and deception. She closed the folder. Connecticut is a no-fault state, but documentation like this ensures you get what you're entitled to. How soon do you want to file? After my sister's wedding, I said. 3 days from now. Margaret raised an eyebrow. Most people would want to stop the wedding, warn the bride. She already knows, I said. And she chose to go through with it anyway. Something flickered across Margaret's face. Understanding, maybe. Or recognition that this was about more than just a divorce. Then let's make sure you're protected, she said. I'll have the papers drawn up by Monday. You can serve him whenever you're ready. I left her office feeling lighter than I had in weeks. Not happy, not relieved, just clear, like I had finally found solid ground after drowning. The next 3 days passed in a strange blur. I went through the motions of being a supportive sister. I attended the bridesmaids' luncheon and smiled through stories about how Emma and Ryan met. I helped set up the venue, tying ribbons on chairs and arranging place cards. I even gave Ryan a hug when he thanked me for being so understanding during this stressful time. Mark watched me with increasing confusion. I could see him trying to figure out my angle, trying to understand why I was being so calm. He kept waiting for the explosion that never came. At dinner 2 nights before the wedding, he finally confronted me in the kitchen while I was loading the dishwasher. I don't understand you, he said. Why are you acting like nothing happened? I placed a plate carefully in the rack before turning to look at him. Really look at him. This man I had loved. This stranger. What do you want me to say, Mark? Something. Anything. You're just going through life like I don't exist. Like we don't exist. Maybe we don't, I said simply. Maybe we never did. His face flushed. That's not fair. I'm still the same person you married. No, I said quietly. You're really not. Or maybe you are, and I just never knew who that person was. I walked past him and went upstairs. He did not follow. The rehearsal dinner was held at a country club overlooking Long Island Sound. 200 guests. Open bar. A 5-course meal. Emma had spared no expense. I wore a navy blue dress and pearl earrings. I made small talk with relatives I barely knew. I laughed at my uncle's bad jokes. I watched Ryan and Mark exchange glances across the room when they thought no one was looking. But I was always looking now. During dinner, my father stood up to give a toast. He talked about family, about love, about how proud he was of Emma for finding such a wonderful partner, about how marriage was the foundation of a strong life. I lifted my glass with everyone else. I took a sip of champagne, and I felt absolutely nothing. Emma caught my eye from the head table. For just a moment, I saw fear there, like she was suddenly realizing that my silence was not acceptance. It was something else entirely. After dinner, I excused myself to the bathroom. On my way back, I ran into Ryan in the hallway. We were alone for the first time since that day in my house. Can we talk? He asked. About what? About everything. About Mark. About what you saw. He ran a hand through his hair. I know what you must think of me. I don't think about you at all, I said. It was not true, but the lie felt good. Emma said you've been acting strange, like you're planning something. Emma should focus on her wedding, I replied. It's in 2 days. I'm sure she wants everything to be perfect. I started to walk away, but his next words stopped me. He loves you, you know. Mark, he's confused, but he does love you. I turned back slowly. Does that make you feel better? Believing that? Ryan looked uncomfortable. I just don't want you to do something you'll regret. Don't worry, I said, smiling. I won't. Before we continue with what happened at the wedding, I want to ask you something. Have you ever been in a situation where everyone expected you to fall apart, but you refused to give them the satisfaction? If you're following this story and want to know how it ends, subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications so you don't miss the final chapter. Leave a like if you would be doing the same thing in my position, and comment what you would do in this situation. Share this with someone who needs to hear this story, because what happened next changed everything. That night, I went home and reviewed everything one more time. The divorce papers were ready. My half of our joint assets had been quietly transferred to a new account in my name alone. I had done everything legally, cleanly, precisely. I had one more thing to prepare. I sat down at my laptop and opened a document. I titled it simply, The Truth About Trust, and I began to write. Not an emotional rant, not accusations or insults, just a clear factual account of what had happened. Dates, times, discoveries, lies, the kind of document that could not be disputed or dismissed. When I finished, I saved it to a flash drive. Then I saved it to the cloud. Then I emailed it to myself at 3 different addresses. I was not planning to use it at the wedding. I was not going to make a scene or destroy Emma's big day with public humiliation. But I wanted them to know it existed. I wanted them to understand that their secrets were no longer safe, that I held all the cards now. I went to bed that night and slept better than I had in months. Tomorrow was the wedding, and I was ready. The morning of Emma's wedding was perfect. Clear blue sky, 70 degrees, a light breeze carrying the scent of roses from the garden venue. The kind of day people pay extra for when booking their wedding date. I took my time getting ready. Hair professionally styled, makeup flawless. I wore an emerald green dress that made me look powerful, not pretty. I wanted to look like someone who knew exactly what she was doing. The ceremony was at 2 o'clock at a historic estate in Greenwich. White chairs arranged in perfect rows, string quartet playing classical music. Everything Emma had dreamed of since she was a little girl. I arrived exactly on time, not early enough to help, not late enough to make a statement. I took my seat in the 3rd row, right side, close enough to see everything, far enough to maintain distance. Mark sat beside me. He had tried to take my hand when I sat down. I moved it to my lap. The ceremony began. Emma looked beautiful, I had to admit. Her dress probably cost more than my car. Ryan stood at the altar in his designer tuxedo, looking every bit the successful finance executive. The perfect couple. I watched them exchange vows. Love, honor, cherish, forsaking all others. The words hung in the air like smoke, beautiful and empty. When the officiant said, "You may kiss the bride," I felt nothing, just a hollow space where anger used to be. The reception was even more elaborate. A massive white tent overlooking the water, crystal chandeliers, a 12-piece band. Champagne flowing like water. Our parents were glowing with pride. Emma had given them the wedding they always wanted. I made polite conversation through cocktail hour. I danced with my cousin. I complimented the centerpieces. I was the picture of grace. But I never stopped watching. I saw Mark and Ryan's eyes meet across the room during dinner. I saw the way Ryan's hand lingered on Mark's shoulder when they spoke by the bar. I saw Emma pretending not to notice. And I saw my parents, blissfully unaware, toasting to a marriage built on lies. After dinner came the speeches. Emma's maid of honor told a story about their college days. Ryan's best man made jokes about bachelor parties. Everyone laughed. Everyone drank. Everyone celebrated. I did not plan to speak. I was not on the program. But as the speeches ended and the band prepared to play for the first dance, I stood up. The room gradually quieted. Emma's face went pale. Ryan and Mark both stared at me with wide eyes. I know I wasn't scheduled to speak. I began, my voice steady and clear. But I wanted to say something about marriage, about trust, about the promises we make to each other. My father smiled, thinking this would be sweet. My mother reached for her napkin, already emotional. I've learned a lot about marriage in the past few weeks, I continued. I've learned that vows are just words unless they're backed by truth, that love without honesty is just performance, and that sometimes the people closest to us are the ones who hurt us most. Emma was shaking her head slightly, a warning, but I was not here to expose her. That would be too easy. I reached into my purse and pulled out a small envelope. I walked calmly to the head table and placed it in front of Emma. Then I placed an identical envelope in front of Mark. "These are my wedding gifts to you both," I said. "Open them whenever you're ready." Inside Emma's envelope was a simple card. It read, "I hope your marriage brings you everything you deserve, and I hope you remember this moment when it doesn't." Inside Mark's envelope were divorce papers. I did not wait for their reactions. I turned to face the room of confused guests and smiled. "Congratulations to the happy couple," I said. "May you always be honest with each other." Then I walked out of that tent with my head high, got into my car, and drove away. I did not look back. Not at the venue, not at the life I was leaving behind, not at the people who had chosen comfort over truth. 3 months later, I signed the final divorce papers in Margaret Chen's office. Mark did not contest anything. He knew he had no ground to stand on. The house was sold, assets divided. I walked away with enough money to start over on my terms. Emma's marriage lasted 7 weeks. The scandal was too much even for her carefully constructed world. Ryan moved out the day after a mutual friend sent Emma photos of him and Mark having dinner together in the city. She filed for annulment, citing fraud. My parents tried to reconcile with me. Long emails about family and forgiveness and moving forward. I responded politely, but kept my distance. Some betrayals are too deep to simply forgive because they're family. I moved to a small apartment in New Haven. Got a promotion at work. Started seeing a therapist who helped me understand that I was not broken for refusing to accept unacceptable behavior. On what would have been my 6th wedding anniversary, I bought myself flowers, red roses, expensive ones, and I put them in a vase on my kitchen counter where I could see them every morning. I never heard from Mark again. I blocked Emma's number after the 5th attempt at reconciliation. I learned that sometimes the strongest thing you can do is walk away and never look back. People expected me to fall apart, to scream, to cry, to make a scene. Instead, I gave them silence. And in the end, my silence spoke louder than any words ever could. They wanted my tears. I gave them my dignity, and I never regretted it for a single moment.